Hello, 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 and thank you for joining me today again. God, 2 streams in a week. What's going on with me? So today we're going to be diving into the Treblle SDK. For those who do not know, I've joined the Treblle team as their PHP developer advocate, and part of my job is going to be to maintain the PHP SDKs. And Craig asked me if I'm going to be brushing my beard, and just for you, yes, I am. Here we go, nice and presentable for YouTube, especially for you, Craig. So the way the SDK currently works, double audio. Bear with. How is that now for you, Benjamin? Hey, Michael. Hi, everybody. Hopefully that double audio has now disappeared. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me just go to the settings and make sure this is working. It's all looking good so far. Let's see what happens. Right, I had some feedback last time that the code sharing window was too small, so we're going to try a different layout. So the way the PHP and Laravel SDKs currently work is that they are separate packages. We've got a PHP SDK that works for kind of just PHP over here. Then we've got a specific Laravel SDK, and there's a little bit of code duplication and a little bit of kind of improvements we can be making. So I came up with the idea of building a core package which will kind of house the shared code, all of the shared code, specifically that the PHP and Laravel packages and any kind of future packages in the PHP space might use. So this core package will then be a dependency of both the PHP and the Laravel SDKs, allowing us to really split things out nicely and differently and work in a specific way, which will be great. So the core package here will include things like data objects, how we do the field masking. It's going to register all any potential endpoints that we use for sending requests up to our API. Any potential enums and any configuration that we might need is all going to be part of that core package. There'll be Laravel specific configuration, which will build up a configuration object, which the SDKs will use. So that's the general idea. So what we've got so far is, here's my SDK core package. It's very simple. All it's got so far is lots of data objects, a contract to bind things, as well as a nice trait which allows me to serialize data. It is, of course, have tests. And that's all I've worked on so far. It is let me come to the composer JSON. Only thing it requires so far is PHP 8.1. Let me zoom in. I don't think I'm ready to push that to 8.2 yet because of the support. So let's go have a look at the PHP version support quickly. So we've still got a little bit of time, almost under a year, until PHP 8.1 is no longer in active support. So I'm keen to make sure that we're still supported on PHP 8.1. Just something that I think is probably going to be important. Treblle Common. I've called it the core for now. Naming can change. It's the SDK core. It's the kind of underpinning core for all of the SDKs in the PHP space. Hello. Thank you everyone for joining me. I can see a frog and I can see my wife has joined. Perfect. The only things that I've focused on so far is pulling in Laravel Pint, Pest for testing, and PHP Stan. So In my usual approach, we can run composer test. 105 tests have passed. I can run composer pint and make sure all code is PSR12. And then I can run composer stan and I can see that there are no errors. I'm getting a warning here from Xdebug, but that's not really that important for me right now. So overall, this package is good to go. The Laravel package, we have a few tests, not as many tests as we might have liked. So what I'm going to do quickly is vendor bin PHP unit. Let's just see how that's working. There's 6 tests with 16 assertions. Runs relatively quickly. But what we're going to do is test docs. Is it test docs or XS? Wait a minute. Here we go. So we've got some tests that are working quite well. Not many tests, not too many assertions, but we can have a look at what is going on with that. I don't know whether this has got a coverage flag. No, coverage is ambiguous, not a problem. Yes, Amy is having a rest from the millions of steps she is currently doing. So the way the Laravel package currently works is it's got some config where we get the API key. Let's just, I don't want to see that. I'm doing something different. So here's our API key, the project that we belong to, any environments that we might want to ignore. So for those who don't know, you can tell Treblle to ignore specific environments, which is great. So when you're running locally or in QA, CI, wherever that might be, you're not going to end up kind of filling up your Treblle project with kind of tests, CI data that you don't want to keep. You're not bothered about the monitoring or observability within those environments. You only really care about specific environments. Masked fields, defines which fields should be masked before leaving the server. So that's things like password, PWD, secret, password confirmation, CC, credit card stuff, credit score, API key, and you can extend that and you can add things to that yourself. And that's all you need from a configuration perspective, which is great. Then what we've got our service provider, which just publishes the config and a setup command. If we run on an Octane, then we need to listen to requests received and store the time that Treblle started. And then we're just adding some alias middleware to the router here. Registering, here's the config. No, it's nothing too crazy, right? It's not doing an overly large amount. All we're doing really is registering some middleware, giving you some configuration and listening to events. So from an SDK perspective, this middleware is going to capture some payload, or the payload that we might potentially want. Good idea. I don't know if I can move myself. I don't have that option on the layout. I could hide myself, maybe. I'll tell you what, I'll hide myself for now, so you don't have to look at my my beard for a little bit. And if you find it a little bit strange, let me know, and I can kind of re-show my face every now and then. So our middleware just grabs everything, does a request. Terminate method is automatically called when the server supports the fast CGI protocol. In this case, server does not support it. We fall back to manually calling the terminate method, and we return the response. So terminate, we're going to grab some Treblle information, going to build up some payload, add all of that in there, build out our HTTP, and send some data to a URL. Catching specific exceptions and not really doing much with them because we don't mind too much. And the base URL is done. We're going to grab a random URL from the potential options, load time. So as you can see, it's somewhat simple. It's just building up how to send this response data, this request data, all the important stuff that you want from Treblle. So if I come and actually have a look and log into my Treblle account quickly, as you can see from the request, we get quite a bit of information. We get a summary, we get IP, format, load time, response size, device information, the server, the request itself, so we can view that request and we can see what auth documentation, any potential headers. We can see a lot of information coming back. And that's the purpose of Treblle, is to monitor your API requests, give you some observability, give you some feedback, and let you understand the state of your API. You know, I'm getting a lot of errors reported. I need to look into that. Lots, where can I improve? My load time's not too bad. My response size is perhaps a little bit too big. I need to look at better authorization and authentication because from a security perspective, my score might be too low. And there's just so much that you can actually do. Benjamin, how do I like DevRel so far? It is amazing. I'm not going to lie. I hardly feel like I'm working sometimes because it's what I'm enjoying myself on a daily basis, and I'm doing what I love to do. So it feels a bit crazy, if I'm honest. Okay, so let's carry on. So let's go have a look at Composer for this one. And what are we requiring? Nothing too much. And on the PHP side, we've got lots of stuff going on here, like the Treblle class, where we've got the client interface, lots of stuff going on. Let me drop that down so we can actually see it better. Hello, Haz. I really am in my element, Kelvin. It's just so much fun. And yeah, I completely agree. The person integrating with an API would find something like Treblle so valuable. And when I gave my talk at Laracon EU, what I was explaining was when you're building out an API, focusing on building from your API from an integration perspective really irons out any potential integration issues that you might face. And there's been countless times where I've been building APIs and not focused from that approach of integration, and I then go to test it and work with it, and it just feels clunky and horrible to work with. So focusing on building an API from an integration perspective really does allow you to understand the use cases for your API, build that developer experience that really works. Yes, Treblle is based in very well. We've got an office in Croatia. We've got a UK office and a US office shortly. We're flying right now. It's absolutely amazing. So what can we do with this SDK? So if we go back to our diagram, I've done the data objects. We need to look at field masking on not on a global scale, but on a kind of a core level. Every SDK is going to want to do field masking. Every SDK is going to want access to endpoints, enums, configuration. And then Laravel, the PHP SDK, every integration from a PHP perspective is going to have their own kind of HTTP approach. whether that's using the HTTP facade, whether that's using a Symfony HTTP client or Guzzle or something. You want to make sure that building an SDK, you're providing as much support as you can across the board without saying, okay, so you want to use our SDK, you got to use this library to send HTTP requests. Oh, sorry, you're going to have a conflict with Guzzle because your framework, your application requires Guzzle X. We require Guzzle X points 2. You're not going to be able to use our SDK, and it's so frustrating. And that's one of the reasons that PSR 18 came out, which is a HTTP client PSR, which I've written a little bit about, and I've actually got a package which manages that for me. But then in Laravel, you don't care about PSR 18 because Laravel's got its own HTTP implementation, which is great and it works. Other frameworks have their own implementation. Some people just want to use curl. Providing that option on the integration level where you're looking at PHP SDK or Laravel package or Cake package. Maybe you want to build out a React PHP package so that you can do asynchronous requests in the background using their HTTP server. Not making those decisions in that core SDK is vital, I believe. And yeah, PSR 7 is going to be perfect for the PHP SDK, but Laravel, not many people enable PSR 7 mode on Laravel, so it would kind of almost be a little bit pointless at that point. So we need to look at balancing that out nicely. So if I come back to this core package, what we want to look at next is maybe building out something like this configuration here. So probably just create a class here called, and I'm developing on the main branch at the moment because this isn't actually a released package yet. I can't remember what the namespace was, if I'm completely honest. Core. Treblle core. There we go. So we're going to have a configuration object. We need a configuration object. We need to be able to build up our configuration and use our configuration. And our configuration is going to want to be able to return an array. For now, we'll just return a simple array. So what do we need inside our configuration? What's going to be important? Anything to do with field masking, endpoints. Basically, if I come back to the Laravel package and come over to the config here, basically anything within here is what we're going to want to do. So we're going to want the API key, project ID, an array, or a list of ignored environments, list of masked fields, and that's pretty much it. So this might not be the final version, by the way. This is most likely going to be part of what it's going to look like. It could be refactored several times before I actually publish this. There is a published version. So if I come over to GitHub, Treblle SDK core, I do have that initial release already done. Tests are running, static analysis is running. Hasn't found its license yet, which is really weird. No downloads, and it's not on packages yet. So you can't actually install it yet. And I haven't documented how to use this package because it's designed for internal use. So don't install it directly unless you're building out your own integration. Michael, I'm not sure about the middleware and external call approach here. If I'm being honest, any reason it isn't thrown into a DB and then synced intermittently. So So the purpose of Treblle is to kind of capture all this data, and we do lots of aggregation and stuff for you. So we wouldn't sync it to your DB because it's not something you want in your application. It's something you want to throw off to Treblle, and we can then handle it and keep hold of that and do all of our magic and data transformations to give you the insights that are actually valuable. If you were building your own version, yeah, you'd probably just want to stick that in the DB or stick that in cache and then sync it intermittently in the background. But for what we're doing, this makes a lot more sense. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to have a read-only string for the API key. Which PHP stand level? Obviously level 9. I'm always using level 9. It is level 9. We're not going to check missing iterable value types because array values are just a nightmare, let's be honest. Okay, so we've got our API key. We're going to want our project ID. Project ID. We're going to want exclude environments. And we're going to want an array of masked fields. So public read-only array masked fields. So, my webcam seems to be in the way. I wanted to make sure we're focusing on the code for this, to be honest. And what this will then do is this will end up returning it in a format that we expect. So this API key, this will have project ID, where we're going to return the project ID. We have the ignored environments. Ignored environments, and then we're going to have the masked fields, which is this masked fields. So we can cast this to an array and it works. So what we talk about in the chat. We're going to look at all of the config stuff. So what we're going to want to do here is types. So the masked fields, what we're going to have is an int string, because if you look at the config here, we've just got a list. It's got no keys, so it's automatically going to be ints. And then the value is always going to be a string. String, string, and string, all looking good. To array. So we're going to return an array of string, string, or an array. That array is going to be int strings, and we're good. We know exactly how that works. I've not heard of a Zebi API, if I'm honest. What is that? No, I've got no idea what that is. So probably no option to use that one, if I'm completely honest. So now we need to look at testing, right? We need to go, let's go create a test and configuration. And we're going to create a new configuration test. So what we want to do is I don't usually test constructors, but I will do for this one. It can build a new configuration object. And what we want to do is, there we go. We're probably going to want some data sets. We've just got some random strings, so I'll just use those. With strings. And we want to expect that a new configuration where the project ID is a string, the ignored environments will just be dev and local, and the mask fields string. We want to make sure that this is an instance of the configuration class. It's nothing too crazy. All looking good, all passed. Oh, here we go. It can build a new configuration object. So what we also want to do is run scan. Are we looking good from there? Cool. And pint. Are we formatted correctly? We are now. We've added braces. So we can add this to Git, Git add, Git commit, and we can say adding config object. What we also want to be able to test is that it turns back into an array, as we might expect. So it can convert a configuration object to an array that we expect. So we can build out this function, go void, let's add string with strings. Config is basically going to be this. And we expect, Jesus, what am I doing today? We expect when we get the config, and we cast this to an array, to be an array, and to equal we'll have the API key, we'll have the project ID, dev and local, and we will have the mask fields, and we expect this to be string. Let's run our tests again. And we have now failed. So the mask fields coming back as an array is not working. What I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to put on some background music quietly because this feels very weird not having any noise on. So what we can do instead of to equal to have keys, and this expects an array of keys, so we can drop that, drop that, drop that, and we will drop that. Still failing. Okay, so at this point, let's just try and dump. We are getting an array with API key Okay, so that isn't actually casting it correctly. Hey, Dan. Is it? Yeah, well, this is me live streaming, working on Treblle stuff. There is a Treblle channel. We haven't had the discussions around kind of putting these on the Treblle channel yet. That's something that both Kelvin and myself will be discussing at some point soon. So, configuration, what we need to do, instead of casting, we're just going to come down and we're just going to make this a toArray method so that we actually manually have to do it. toArray, this should now be good. Enjoy, Michael. I'll be here for the next hour or so, I think. Yeah, we've definitely got some stuff planned for the Treblle channel. So if I now drop this DD, we should be okay. And we are. Perfect. So we know that our configuration option is working as we would expect right now, which is fine. It is great. So we don't need any of that now. So that we can come back here. We know that configuration works. Data objects are working. I really am living with Dream. I absolutely love this job. It's great. So let's have a look at masking. How do we currently do masking in the PHP SDK? Where is this done? I believe this is the payload anonymizer. So set these masked, anonymize. If it's not a string, it's not an array. We're going to sprint and replace and basically just turn it into a star. That's how we handle the masking. So it's kind of fine. How are we testing this? Anonymize some data. This is passing in some providers, assert the same fields. Okay. So I think we could probably relook at this one. So we're basically going to pass it in some data, and we want to say, okay, let's anonymize anything that we've configured to be anonymized. Yes, I'm off in June to the Netherlands. I'm off to go speak at a Laravel meetup. I haven't planned the talk yet, though. I'm still working on what I'm actually going to talk about. I'll figure it out before then. So, masking. How could we nicely do masking? That's kind of like the golden question. How are we doing it in mask fields? Let's just collapse this. This mask fields, for each field. We kind of want it to be consistent, right? We're just going across, we're saying, okay, so config, provide a fallback in case someone forgot to clear cache. So we're going to get the masked fields, and we're going to provide a default amount that we don't want to capture anyway. If the fields aren't empty, then we're going to run through the data. If the value is an array, we're going to pass that back to ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to run through each field, do a preg match on the field, make sure it actually exists. If it's an authorization, we're going to explode the value. And then we're just going to basically replace. So basically, we're just doing lots of string replace if array values exist, right? That's kind of what we're doing. So let's say masking. And we're going to have a new class called field masker. This field masker will public function construct. It will receive an array of fields that need masking. Apparently my wife's going to leave me alone with all the kids and go on holiday somewhere. Okay. My day's taking a funny turn. So when it comes to masking, what we want to do is basically we want to replicate this. We're going to get this. We're going to pass in some data. We want to get the fields. Okay, so we want to also get the data as well. You're going for a week, Jesus. Leave me alone with the kids for a week. So, public function mask. And this is going to return an array of all math values. What we could probably do is contracts, masking, and just create like a masking contract. This is going to be a nice interface. And all it really needs to do is return an array. This can now implement a masking contract. Oh, do I need a, do I want to? Yeah, I would love a coffee. Please, wife. So at this point, we want to go, how did we do it in this one? Did we like build up an array to return or something? Reach data. We're just overriding the data, right? That's reasonable. So eventually we're just going to return this data. So for each this data as a key value, we want to do some work. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I was going to do something. I'm going to var dump and die because I haven't got DD installed. We're going to do this. And what we do is we're just going to create a quick test so that we can see how this is going to work and make sure that it works the way we want it to. Build masker test. It can mask a simple payload. So what we want to do, oh, come on, Richard. I've always got typos. I am the typo master. We're going to want another data set, and we're just going to create, I don't know, arrays. I heard a knock on my door with coffee. Thank you, wife. I'll try and remember to drink this one. going to declare some strict types, and we're going to set the data set, and we're going to call this arrays. This is going to be an array of arrays. I definitely write typo script. That is definitely what I do. So we're going to have password as just password for now. Then we're going to have API key as test, CC for credit card numbery thingy as 1234, 1234, 1234, 1234. The simplest of UUIDs, and we just keep it like that for now. And we're going to return a few of those, and we'll just keep them. I'll keep them the same for now, just to make it simple. With arrays, and we're going to have an array of arrays. So bar dump and die quickly. I just want to make sure that the array that I get is what I expect. What I'm going to do actually, come to warp. We're going to full screen this one. We're going to go into developer, into GitHub, into Treblle. SDK core. And we're going to compose a test over here so we can see it nicer. So, string given. Okay, so it's going to map over them. So that's not what I want to do. So we're going to delete this data set. And instead, we're going to not do a with. We're just going to manually do it. Okay, so we have a masker. New field, masker. And let me drop that down. And we want the fields and the data. So the fields we want to mask are going to be password, API key, and CC for now. The data we are going to pass over is going to be password as password, the API key is going to be test, CC is going to be 134, 134, 134, and then foo is going to be bar. For now, this is a simple payload. So masker mask. So now if we run our tests, we're getting password twice. That is coming from our masker, where we're going to dump that and that because, yeah. So if value is an array, what we want to do at this point is basically run the masker scan itself. I kind of see why certain things are done in a different way over here, where mask gets the data passed in instead. So let's refactor to that, where this has an array for the data, drop the this, and then this data can be passed in like this instead. Let's just format this. It'll bug me. So we get a field masker passing in the fields, then we ask it to mask specific data. Okay, that works. That will work for what I want. Password, password, perfect. So if it is an array, what we want to do at this point is say, I kind of want this collector up here. We then want to say collector key equals this mask where the data is the value. Kind of want to build it up that way, right? And eventually we're going to return that collector itself. So we don't want a var dump at this point. So we've checked if it is a string, an array. Partial masking for the authorizer. Yeah, I'm going to come back to that part. This is a basic masker and then add on top of that one. So if it is not that, then what we want to do, we're assuming, well, we can do some kind of type enforcement here, right? We can say, okay, so the data being passed in needs to be string or string array. So the name and the value is either going to be a string or an array. And each time it passes through, this will have to be a string or an array, so you can handle nested nicely. So at this point, we should know it is a string. So what we can do is collector key equals okay, so let's look at how we did it over here. String repeat for the string length of the value. That's kind of what we need to do. So the string that we're going to want to repeat is a star. The times can be string of function, string lengths, expect string, array string given. Okay. So there we go. I can get hold of that. So then on our test here, we're masking and returning. So what this should do, expect that mask to be array, and we'll down dump it quickly. So password, API key, CC, and foo. So now that we've done that, we can come back to the field masker. If it's a string, At this point, we want to say if in array where the needle is the key and the haystack is this fields, we want to do that. I'm going to rewrite this. This is the basic version. We'll come back to it. So there we go. That bit handles it. Lottery class to get some funny randomness. Unfortunately, I'm not using Laravel right now. This is just PHP, so something I can come back to. So, awesome. Yes, we can add true to be strict. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, on the test, we can say, like, we can do the two equal at this point, right? Because we know exactly how this wants to be masked. So we know that password wants to be password, and we know that the API key at this point should be test, T-E-S-T, and we know that CC is going to want to be 1234-1234-1234-1234, and that foo should remain as bar. And we're looking good. It can mask a simple payload. So we're masking that okay. We can mask the simple payload. Next, we want to expand upon this and say that we want to say that it can mask a oh, I can't remember the name of it now. Is it, oh, that's it, recursive array. That's what I mean. So we're going to do something similar here. Let's drop this out. And let's say that we have a form. And within this form, we have both password and API key. But outside the form, we have CC and foobar. So this at this point should be form. If we're going to kind of make an assumption here, and then this should have that in it like that. So is this going to work? And it does automatically. Look at that. I'm just going to have a bit of my coffee and celebrate. And what I would do is, for now, I will show my face because we're stopping code for 2 seconds. How are people finding it? Is this making sense? Because the next stage is to kind of detect whether this is like a header that we need to detect stuff on. And what we did here on the anonymizer is if it's an array, we do this. If it's a string, we continue. If it's not a string, then we continue. We're going to then check sprintf. That's a regular expression. And if it matches the key, what is that actually checking? This is where my regex is really terrible. Kelvin's online, isn't he? Kelvin's always online. What's this regular expression for? I'm assuming we're matching something like a string with a space and then something. So how could that header come through? Let's have a look in here. /b. I really wish PHP Storm would like have a code highlight to like show what this regular expression actually does. Okay, so auth string parts. Okay, do not disturb is just turned off. So if I get notifications, I apologize. But we'll come back to that. So checking a field. I really don't know what that does. Tell you what we'll do. Is it regexa? Yeah. So this bit is going to be something like test. Matches a boundary position between a word character and a non-word character position, start and ending of a string. Why is MI even in there? Checking for bare and basic. Could be a nicer way, right? So if this is a string, then at this point we want to go and say, check if this is an auth header or API key header, etc. MI is multi-line. Oh, okay, cool. We're getting there. So I need an example of this, don't I? So let's come over to the hello.anonymizer test. Let's have a look down here. Nested array, password, credit card, credit score, confirmations. Let's see if we're getting anything to do with auth. No, we're not. Damn it. I need to be able to test. Mocking stuff. Okay, so if I can make an assumption here, is we should be getting like the key at this point should be a header, right? So if its value is a string, we want to say, is the key a header we want to mask? So what we can do at this point is maybe do something like a private function is header, where we're passing in the name and we're returning a bool. We can say return in array, where the needle is going to be name, the haystack is going to be an array, and then strict is going to be true. And let's. Sorry, keyboard's gone a little bit wonky donkey on me. Okay, so we're going to want authorization, next dash API dash key, something like X API key as well. So at this point, we're going to say, I'll keep it as that for now because that can be extended. Maybe that could be passed out to some sort of config option or something. We can add that to the contract itself. No, we can't because we can't add private. Never mind. So if this key is a header that we want to worry about, then what we want to do here is grab the sensitive part of the value and mask. So that's kind of what we want to do, right? So I'm learning the SDK while slightly rebuilding. So I do apologize if this feels a bit kind of hacky, but that's kind of what I'm doing, hacking on the SDK to see what we can do. Oh, that's a good coffee. So if it's a header, then we want to grab the value and either that's a good question. So at this point, I'm going to var dump and die. I'm going to add some debugging aspects to this one while I go through. And add value to that quickly. This shouldn't fail because I haven't got one yet, but on the field masker test here, what I'm going to do I'm going to hack on it a little bit and say that this is going to be a bearer token. So hopefully this dies. Yes, we have got bearer something. So at this point, we've got the key. So Elder says that two arrays are equal. Just gonna check something. Okay, so that's not detecting that, it's a header. So it's header. If in array password var dump, and down here I'll die. Okay, so CC info. Oh wait, I haven't even added that bit. Added that to the wrong part. Silly Steve. Right. So field masker, we're gonna skip that guy part. And we're gonna do this here. Cannot access type string of string. Pardon, okay, so gosh. Here. So we are getting there. Bearer 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this really is that kind of creation process where I'm taking what we've got, looking at how we could kind of make it a little bit more abstract, maybe lean on regex a little bit less. Are we handcrafting a request instead of using a library? No, we're going to end up, that's going to be a different part. That'll be when I'm working on perhaps the PHP SDK and the Laravel SDK. That'll be slightly different. So we are getting this here. So we've got an is header. So we could add a private function is auth, where we take in a string value and return a bool. I mean, this isn't the final thing. I want everyone to bear that in mind. So what we need to do is, because it's value, at this point, we know it's got a space in it. We need to say if in array, where the needle, it's not just going to be one though, is it? So the needle is going to be, okay, so grab that and grab the first one. Then the haystack we want to compare it to, it could be this, and then we will again do strict mode. So we have bearer, basic. I think I'll keep it at that for now, just to get started. We're worrying about if it's a bearer or basic at this point. We want to say if this is auth, where the value is value. It's a header. Okay, so if it's not auth, if it is auth, we do something specific. We're going to get the parts. We're going to explode where the separator is the space. The string is going to be the value. So at this point, we should have something that looks like that. So what we want to then do is this, basically. So this means that we're repeating code, which is going to annoy the hell out of me. So parts going to be the length of current parts 1 . This is starting to get messy. I'm really not liking how messy this is feeling. There's got to be a nicer way to do this. Coffee helps you think, by the way. Let's just see what's happening in our test right now. All looking good so far. So we're masking that. And we want this to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is going to fail. We're getting the right direction. So this part, we've got the parts. Let's just quickly var dump. Actually, we could probably just die on it. Don't need to var dump it really. Let's just var dump on the parts, or die on the parts, sorry. Rate string conversion. Okay, maybe we do need to var dump. And then die. So we've got the parts. That is correct. That has done what we expect it to do. We've got the value. So now we need to say that the value is equal to implode by a space the parts, which means that when we come down here, the value should be done. Oh, I don't know, I'm gonna have some more coffee. Oh, okay, apparently it is. Oh, this is nothing to do with sending auth right now. This is all about just masking fields. So what I've got here, we've got one explode going on. We've got the string repeat here. What we can do is just have like a public function anonymize. I've probably spelled completely wrong. More actions. Rename to. Okay, I'm just going to call it star. This is going to accept a string and return a string. And what this is going to do is basically this. Return that part where this is the string. This is just going to help keep the code a little bit cleaner. Star, 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 star. So up here, we're going to say this key, we need that value. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say this star, where the string is this. And again, here, we need that parts. And we're going to change this to this star, where the string is this. And that works. It still feels quite lengthy though. Like if I do the test, this is working. But if I vendor bin pest coverage, okay, we're still at a good amount actually. We've still got 100% coverage, so okay, I'm not too worried. I can look to clear this up. Like that bit you can't do much about. The is string. This data here. This should already know it's a string at this point. The is header, is auth. We can work on, because if it's not auth, then what we want to do is just kind of carry on. So let's take an example of, okay, so actually no, that doesn't matter, because field masker itself is where we're checking the header and we're saying, okay, we only care about these. So maybe let's test it with this, where we expect this to be 134, 134, 4321. And then we're going to expect this to be here, where it should be 1234. Oh, no, wrong key. 1234-1234-4321. Now let's test. Failed. Okay, so that's still coming back through. So what we need to do is, there's a if is auth, else we're just going to let's var dump and die on the value quickly to make sure we're doing it in the right way. We're getting the 1234, and then okay, so at this point value is just going to be this star, right, where the string is the value. Cool, we're getting there. We are getting there. There's too many ifs and now. I hate if and else statements. There's got to be a cleaner way to handle this eventually. This is okay for now because this is something that we can manage internally. We only care about specific headers. The auth part we can manage internally, and then fields, because all of these are kind of somewhat overwritten. We only care about certain aspects within there. But yeah, 113 lines isn't awful, I guess. Feels awful. It feels terrible. Okay, so we've done masking. Masking works, much to my surprise right now. So if we come back to our diagram here, endpoints, Treblle core, what we're going to have next is we're going to have HTTP, and we're going to have so the way that the library works is it kind of gives us a random URL when we're looking at actually sending. Skips all of that. No. It's on the Laravel one, isn't it? Treblle middleware. If we zoom down or zoom up, and what we get is when we want the base URL, we're basically just getting a random URL from one of these so that we can just pass it to one. With headers, API key, post to that base URL, the payload, and we're good. So these are the URLs. So what I'm going to do is say that we are going to return string. We can have rock and roller. or we can have Punisher. Or we could have Cesario, which is this one. I know, I'm really surprised masking worked right now. I'm going to try not to, yeah. Okay, so let's Punisher. Let's add these to the dictionary. So we've got the endpoint. So when we're sending, we can just say, okay, gives a random one from here. Or we could select a specific one, because why not, right? The other HTTP thing that we probably want is we want method. This is again going to be an enum. This is going to return a string. So we're going to have case post. It's the only method we actually need to do. I will add a couple more just for future's sake. Okay, I know I made a typo. Don't worry. Don't worry. Before anyone mentions it, I know it's there. I'm Steve. I'm aware of my typos. I just make them a lot. There we go. We got some methods, HTTP methods. Well, should this be called verbs? Like we want a specific verb, HTTP verb. Technically, it's a verb, so let's rename it to verb. So we could say verb get, verb post. I don't know if that makes sense. Let's undo that. There we go. So let's come back and just make sure that we're still doing good on our coverage. Yeah, we're good. Because you don't really test enums, they're just kind of data stuff. Typos with style, I like that. Okay, so we got a couple of enums. We got config, we got field masking. The core package is almost ready. What I would like to do next is have a look at the Treblle class itself. So this is the kind of the core of the SDK. We've got an SDK, we've got the SDK version. We're building up our constructor, language data provider service, server data provider. I don't really know what these are doing now. Get server. Okay. On error, translate errors. So that's an error helper. And when we do this, we're going, okay, so add this specific error. When we get an exception, add this. When we're building the payload, we're building out the data. Okay, I could probably do a lot of this in the core stuff. Hey, Lucas, how you doing, buddy? Lucas is in the chat. Lucas is someone that I used to work with. He is awesome. Like get server, okay, get language, get request. Super globals, getting the request, getting a new request, which is specific model. There's nothing specific. Okay, so that's using the global server. So I don't want to be doing that. I want to do that on the implementation side for Treblle. So building the payload should perhaps be done client side. Yeah. That's probably going to be the best bet. What else needs doing on this class itself? On shutdown, sending a guzzle request, that's fine. Getting the base URL, already got that. Okay, so this basically, it just builds the data, and on specific errors, it kind of adds an error to the data provider. Okay, they're collectors. Oh, your first time joining one of my lives. Welcome, welcome. We're kind of building something fun. What could we do? What could we do? Because some of this SDK, part of Treblle SDK, should be absolutely fine to do kind of across the board in the core package, but there's aspects of it specifically around building the request that needs to be done implementation side, not on the core. So things like getting the errors, like in-memory error data, cool, error helper, output buffering, response body, getting response. This is probably where we're going to be getting some server stuff. And, some frameworks unset the global helpers, which is something we need to kind of avoid. On the PHP helper, filter validate is bool, any get a variable, get any values, language data, so PHP version, get an invalid and displaying the error, that's fine. That can be global. The helpers over there, that's fine. Super globals, global server, PHP helper, payload anonymizer, I've already got. Response for the output buffering, errors. Okay, so what it boils down to is that we've got these parts. So the server data provider we can't use, request we can't, response we can't, we can do errors, and language globally, because that's easy enough to do. This is where we're just detecting like the PHP language version and stuff like that. What we can then do is, what can we then do? I'm not sure what the best way to do this is. I want to be able to kind of have this Treblle class as a global thing. Request data server. I can do it that way, where you pass it in. Okay, this will work. So core. Configurations there, and then what we can do is we can say, let's create a new Treblle class, Treblle core. And in our constructor, I don't even know what I'm writing there. Public function construct. I'm going to somewhat mirror it for now, and then kind of add some refactors in a little while. So here's our Treblle class here, and this is going to have the API key. So we're going to start private. So private read-only string. Actually, those two things should be on the config themselves. And here, like this. They should already be in config, so we don't want to kind of end up duplicating, right? Duplication is the devil. So we're going to have a config. We're going to pass in the configuration. And then we're going to pass, we're not going to care about that. Server data provider we will want. So contracts, we're going to want server. It's not really a data provider, is it? This is a contract. It's so server data provider. So where's data providers? Server data. Here we go. So this is basically a factory, almost. I'll keep it as a data provider. It somewhat makes sense. Okay, so we're going to have data providers and contracts, and we're going to have first one, server data provider, which is going to be an interface. Bam. So this server data provider here is going to return a server. Which is a data object, not a model. So we can then have the private read-only server data provider server. How did I spell that wrong? That was silly. I just noticed that. Refactor, rename, factor, rename, done. So we got a server data provider. That's cool. Come back to our thing here. Then we've got the language data provider. Why did I take us? Go away, screenshot. Where'd that go? Where'd it go? I lost it. Oh well, we'll stay here. SDK call. Okay, so we're going to refactor. We're going to rename this and call this a contract. That's fine. Let's do that. So we got the server data provider contract. Then we're going to want the language data provider contract. Language data provider contract. I mean, I don't think we need the data providers. So we could just say language contract. May as well not make it too messy. So coming over here, we can go refactor, rename, and we're just going to call this server contract. So we're going to have a server contract, a private read-only language contract for the language. Then we're going to have the request contract. So we need to pass that through. So private read-only request contract request. Then we want the response. So response contract, again an interface, private read-only response contract, response, and lastly error contract. So private read-only error contract, error, and then private read-only all debug equals false. That defaulting to false. We don't know. We don't know. We're going to default it to false. So what we'll also do is set the. I hate constants. Oh, do I have to? Do I really have to? Do I really have to? I'm probably going to have to. I hate using constants so much. There's got to be a nicer way to do it. Got to be a nicer way. I'll keep it for now. And we will have a look at a nicer way to do this. So Treblle, what we need to do with Treblle, we've done all of this assigning stuff on error. We will need the error data provider to add an error. So let's go over and fill out these contracts. We're going to say get error and add error, basically. So error contract, we're going to have get errors, where this is going to be we can just have like a list like we do there, a list of errors. So list of errors, and then we need the add error public. Hey. This can just be get, and this can just be add. You know, we don't need the errors because it's almost pointless. Void, cool, and yep. It's error contract completed. Language. We want to be able to get the language. So public function get language. Return language. Request. We're going to want to be able to get the request. Public function get. That's going to return a request object. Response is going to be able to get. Public function get. It should return a response. And then the server, we just want to be able to get. Cool. So those things are working. So what we can do locally is we've got data objects, masking, configuration. We want to add our data providers. So what we can do ourselves is the error. Well, I want to spell things correctly. Error provider implements error contract get and add. So the in-memory error. So we're going to want a listy. So let's just do the constructor, public function construct. Private array errors. This array is actually going to be a list. Damn it. Where am I? Here. A list of errors. Fine. This is going to be return this errors. Add, it's just going to be this errors. Like that. Simple. Ooh, I'm gonna have to go soon because I've actually got a meeting. Ooh, what's going on? Ooh, what's complaining? Why are we complaining? There we go. So error contract, there's an error. We've got an error contract there. What are data objects are DTOs? Data objects, like, here's the error. It's just basic object. It can be cast to an array and can be serialized. It's a data object that we just pass around the application. So there's an error. Error is good. Let's just close off all of these for now because we don't need any of them. Probably want the PHP one. Get language. We'll just create a support folder here. Support. And we're going to have a PHP support for this PHP helper. We're getting an ini value. So public function get ini. We could just say ini value. And actually doing one thing. So ini is going to get a string coming back. Going to be passed in a string. So we want to try and get an ini variable. This is going to be up on the Treblle. GitHub, not my own. Can you exclude certain routes being caught by Treblle middleware for reporting? Yes, you can add them to very specific routes. So in my last stream, I added it globally to anything under the API routes. I just added it as a group middleware. What you can also do is add it to specific routes, route groups, be very explicit and very specific about which ones. So let's say that the value is going to be ini get. Let's just grab that for now and let's have a look at what's going on. So the value filter var is going to, I like to use name values. It just works for me. Filter validate boolean, filter means I can just drop this. We're good. Okay. Is bool. Value is then going to be, let's just do it this way. Here we go. Done. Done. Okay. Kind of doing the same thing, but this is a PHP helper within the support here. So when it comes to language on the data provider, we can just create a language provider in our constructor, public function construct. Let's also implement the language contract and quickly add the stubs. So let's go back to the language data provider. This is basically what we're going to do here. Get. I'm not going to do that yet. What we're going to do is private read only PHP. This PHP get string dun. So the new language is going to be name version expose PHP, display errors. There's a language, there's a helper, and that is done. We'll worry about getting stuff done for this later. Language. And they're the only two I can actually do. So that's fine. What I'm going to do, I'm going to commit all of this. So git status. Let's just quickly test coverage because this is going to have reduced 0.0.0.0.0s. We're still at 83%, which is fine. So compose a scan it. We've got a couple of errors. We're going to run pint quickly and then look at those errors again. I've got a call in 12 minutes. I should probably think about getting there. Debug is never read. Error. These are never read. That's fine because I'm not done with any of that. So we add git commit working on the core SDK package. We're going to push that directly up to main because it isn't a published repo. But let's say it is a published repo. It is not a thing, a package yet. Here is the link should you want it. And yes, wifey, I would love some lunch, please. So here is the repo. Been going for just under 2 hours. And I am going to call it a day there because I have got other calls and things that I have to do with my time today. So I wanted to thank you all very much for joining me. What you will see in the description below is a link to Treblle in various places. And feel free to follow us on Twitter, comment on the video to let me know how you found it. Sign up for Treblle, have a play, see what you think about it. It's really fun to use. You can see some really interesting analytics on your API. Other than that, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Good night, good day, and good morrow.